the coach, the mentor, the advisor, the consultant, the creator, the SaaS product. The lines between those things are the blurriest that they've ever been. And that's an advantage for us. Because if I can use technology or use training or content as a part of my service delivery to make my life easier, my business more profitable, my client happier, why would I not do that? So It's like the lines are blurred. How do we use that to our advantage?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. I am super excited because our guest today is none other than the one, the only, Greg Hickman. Super pumped. Greg and I have been connected. We've been friends, colleagues for many, many years, probably close to 8 to 10 years by now. And he is really someone that I have leaned on a lot for life advice. I have jammed with him on all sorts of things, agency life, and he is the world-renowned expert on transitioning your agency away from done-for-you work and into a more lifestyle approach. When you think of growth and you think of all of the people who are selling agency stuff, they're always talking about get more clients, get more clients, get more clients. The vast majority of us, yes, we want clients, but we also want lifestyle. And so I'm excited to chat with him here today about what he's seeing in that approach and how to design a lifestyle business around your agencies. So, Mr. Hickman, welcome to Experts Unleashed.
It is such a pleasure to finally be here.
All right, so let's jump right in. Greg, give us a quick 30 to 60 second background about who you are, what Alt Agency is, and then we'll jump into the discussion.
So, quick context, I spent my first decade of my career working in real agencies, part of Omnicom, representing brands, Pepsi, Unilever, professional sports teams, like large organizations, hundreds of employees, into boutique shops, finishing client side at a large independent retail company or large retail company, Cabela's, building out their digital marketing department, and was responsible for hiring agencies and collaborating with agencies on the client side before going out on my own. So I've now been out on my own for just over 10 years and had one agency that failed. My next agency kind of started to get semi-successful, high six figures, approaching 7, when I realized I was building something that I escaped the agency world. Now I have, 14 people. We're working nights and weekends. It looks great on the outside, but I'm miserable on the inside. I built the very thing that I escaped, and I had to pause. And that's sort of where Alt Agency, as before I called it Alt Agency, was born. And I just knew that I didn't want to, we hit that number where it's like, again, knowing what I know now, I could go back and scale it way further than I did. But I was at that point where it's like, all right, in order to take more clients, I need more team. We don't have enough profit or money left to really bring on that team. So something's broken, but I also don't want more team. And so, well, how do I grow if I don't want a larger team than I already have? Is the only answer just raising prices and swapping out low paying clients for high paying clients? I was like, I've been in this game for a decade. I've done that through other companies. That's not the game that I want to play. Coincidentally, I had a prospect that I had a call with that day, kind of in this moment. And I was like, I just have no room to take you right now. I'm sorry, we're at capacity. And he's like, well, can you just show me how you do this? And at the time, we were building webinar funnels for people like John Lee Dumas, Dan Martell. We were behind the scenes of big name people. And I was like, what do you mean show you? And he's like, can you just show me your campaigns and let me ask you questions? And I said, sure. And he's like, well, how much? And so I just quoted him 50% of what we normally were charging, which at the time was $7,500. I was like, $7,500. He's like, done. And he gave me his credit card, and I hung up and I was like, what the hell just happened? And so I was like, I don't even know what I'm giving him. And so I basically just, at the time, I was a certified partner of Infusionsoft, now Keep, and I was able to import all of the campaigns 85% built. And I was like, here they are. Here are templates for copy. Go customize them. Here are a couple videos on where you go paste them. We'll just quickly quality control it before you're done. And he did it in a week. And I was was like, that was the easiest fulfillment of my entire life. What's going on? And then so I started selling that over and over and over again. It didn't take any more team. It didn't take any more of me. And that's when I stumbled on kind of the world of like high ticket consulting or productized service. Like it's more productized consulting, group coaching, whatever label people want to put on it these days. It's just like a better way of getting someone the result.
Yeah.
And from that moment, within 11 months, that offer hit a 7-figure run rate, and we phased out all of the custom done for you stuff that we were doing. And that kind of led us to now showing a bunch of other agencies how to really do that. All was accidental, man. It happened, and then people saw us doing it, and they're like, well, wait, I sell services. How can I do this? And our program really kind of evolved from just building funnels to sell courses to how do we productize your service and then build out systems and automation to get clients and deliver to clients in a more effective way.
It's so funny because you don't know what you don't know until it happens.
100%.
And, you know, as someone who's run an agency myself and who's also transitioned to coaching or productized services, I know you like to call it that as well, because it's
Yeah.
not just group coaching. There are multiple ways to gain leverage over what you do from the done for you services side. What would you say is like the biggest misconception and the biggest belief that's holding agency owners back from productizing?
Well, I would say if you're more of like a creative service provider, it's always that productization equals not creative and not custom. Like
Yeah.
they feel like their creativity is robbed. So that's always from the more creative oriented folks. But I'd say more generally speaking, it's not really an objection. Even to this day, it's still so misunderstood that they're like, I just don't know what I would productize. I think they confuse it with a different package. And so, like, the difference between a package being, oh, I have my gold and platinum plans, and really the only difference is how many hours you get with my team or the number of services that we are doing for you. They don't understand that, like, how do I take what we do, the deliverables, the work, and tie that to some sort of an outcome or a transformation or a result that speaks to the problem that they have?
Hmm.
I don't see how they can't see how their services can be packaged or put into a box and say it solves this problem.
Yeah. So from what I heard, it's kind of twofold, and I can echo part of it. I mean, I can see part of. So the first one was I started laughing because when I work with clients, I hear a lot of pushback as well. It's the creative person, right?
Yeah.
That it's like, like no, they're not doing. If they were to productize, it's like, well, what if my clients don't do it right, or what? Like they hate the idea of losing creativity. And then the second problem sounds like it's more messaging. Like, how do I position it? How do I get people as excited about a service that I'm actually doing less work in? It's like, well, it's not really what people buy. They buy you already mentioned it, they buy the transformation. Talk about the first part, dealing with creatives, right? I don't want to throw them under the bus,
No,
but
we can. I love them. They're our clients. We can throw them under
okay,
the bus,
cool.
but then we'll pick them back up and bring them to their feet.
Yeah. So talk about dealing with creatives, because I've done this. I've had to deal with quite a few of those types where it's just like I love you so much, but like you got to meet
Yeah.
me somewhere here. So talk about why
Yeah.
they resist that so much.
Well, obviously, first, they think that by productizing and or even standardizing that it eliminates the creativity. The first thing I want to preface is I've looked back and researched this pretty in depth. I mean, if any of you go to YouTube and you type in productize service, you will likely be blitzed with videos from my channel. So like I've researched productize services deep in it for a while. The first use of the word productize service that I have ever come across was in the book Built to Sell by John Warrillow. And the entire story is about a creative agency. So like he was a creative firm. They did brochures, they did
Yeah.
advertisements, they did commercials, and they also did logos. And one of the things that they were best in class at was logos. And so they productized down into doing just logos. Now, obviously, all creative folks, it's not like they're giving every single client the same logo. The logo is still unique. The output, but they still needed a logo. They needed a logo for a specific reason. And the process in which they created the logo and the process in which they worked a client through their process to get the logo finished was systematic, and it was the same 5 or 7 steps every single time. And so I think the first step is to let's eliminate the word productized from the perspective of everyone's getting the same thing, and think more systematized, and think about it is I follow the exact same process to deliver the outcome every single time, and I never have to deviate from that process in order to get my clients a result. That's the first step. Obviously, he's not delivering everyone the same logo. Pepsi rolls in, they're like, well, that's Unilever's logo. Well, it's productized. Everyone gets the Unilever logo. Like that would obviously not fly. So I think it's first is what is the steps that you take that you can take every single time to get the outcome that the client wants. And then, like you said, position it in a way that it appears like a product. Because the second you deviate from the 5-step process, you are now back into, well, you're doing custom services. And so you have to be going to find and sell and deliver to clients that want only that specific thing, not that plus all this other stuff. And I think that's where people kind of start getting hung up, because they're like, oh, but like they also want this. And it's like, cool. Like you don't have to be the one to deliver that other thing. You can choose to, but then not being a productized service, right? There can still be creativity. The output of the end result can still be unique every single time. And every single creative person that I've worked with that has gone through at least our process, they all kind of come back and say something along the lines of, layer of eliminate some of these things that seem like fluff to the client, but still get them the output that they want. So it still requires a ton of creativity and creative problem solving. They look at creative as one client wants one thing, another client wants something different. That's not creativity. That's customization. If every client needs a different output, well, you're basically running multiple businesses.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, kind of the distinction, if that helps.
Yeah. And it's probably really hard for creative people to systemize because it's just
Yes.
not how their brain is built. Right.
Yeah.
That's got to be painful. So I am not a systems person. I am a
I
creative
know.
at heart.
I know.
I know. You don't have to tell me. And every time I talk, like, I'm attracted to systems, but also when a system gets built, I want to break it because it's like I feel constrained. I legitimately feel like I just want to pound like I might have built a really cool system, and as soon as I step inside, I immediately just want to like throw my arms up and pound every single wall around there and just break it because it feels constraining. And so I think just trying to like empathize with creatives and how they may or may not feel.
For sure. And so, look, I don't believe that if you're a creative and you're listening, that productization is the only answer and or has to be the answer for you. You can totally continue to do things the way you are. But if you choose to do so, you also need to accept and be okay with all of the cons that come along with that. Because there's obviously cons, there's cons to everything, right? And so you have to be willing to compromise in certain areas like marketing, delivery, hiring, systemization, all of that, like predictable revenue, all of that is easier with productizing and systematizing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If you want to be like the creative freelancer, hiring's always going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be subcontracting. It's always going to be tied to you, most likely, because you're not trying to codify your process. You're probably going to have to charge a ton of money and have fewer projects because of how deep and creative you are in the things that you're working on, which means that, again, the business becomes more reliant on you. If you are full of joy and love your life in that model, then great, you're already winning. And if you're profitable, you're winning. But if you hate your life and you're constantly thinking that the grass is always greener, which no matter what side you're on, you're going to think the grass is greener. You just have to be able to take the cons with the pros of either side. And that's also why I think some of what we teach and preach is kind of like a little sampling of like kind of gives you like the best of all worlds, which we can talk about. But I think the Creative, I started listening to the interview Tim Ferriss with Seth Godin. I guess he has like a new book coming out called Strategy, or This
Hmm.
Is Strategy. He made the distinction, like the difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur, which I've actually never heard anyone really talk about, or at least I never caught it. And he's like, a freelancer is the person who's committed to doing everything custom. The business will always be reliant on them. They only make money when they're working. And that's okay if that's what you want. But when you commit to entrepreneurship, you have to kind of commit to something bigger than yourself, because it's about bringing team in. It's about removing yourself from certain things, which starts to lead to management and overseeing other things. You're not always the one doing the things. And I think that's where some creatives kind of maybe poo poo on this, because let's be real. And I like being involved in certain things because I align with being a creative person too. Like, I'm way more of a creative than I am a systems person. I actually think there's art and creativity in systems. That's how I kind of fell into it. But like, I love graphic design. I love photography. I love the art side of what we do. And I think
Hmm.
there's more art in me than science. I think one thing that happens is when people start to build a creative agency or anything where they see themselves as a creative, oftentimes in order to grow, they remove themselves from the creative part, right? Like, oh, well, like we need another guy to do websites. Like, so now we have three people doing websites. And at some point you kind of do need to, or you need someone else to step up and be sort of the CEO.
Hmm.
And the CEO manages people, they manage money, they manage the numbers. And so you have to be willing to wear that hat. And I think that's where the unhappiness comes from, is like they're so far outside of their zone of genius, but they're also not willing to go hire someone who's going to be expensive to run and grow their business, because that's the role that they're missing. And so they always kind of stay in that spot. And so this alt agency model, I feel like kind of many ways, not to put myself in a corner, but like I think it thrives when you're in between the freelance to entrepreneur agency structure. Like, if we're looking at those as the way in which the company is organized, it can sit in between kind of what an agency, as we call it, is, and you being that freelancer, if that makes sense, which why I find it to be a kind of a sweet spot.
I just was reminded while you were talking and while I was listening
Yeah.
of a book that helped me get to over 200 grand a month very, very quickly with our agency. I'm going to bring up this book and you're probably going to be like, dude, of course, I've read that 100,000 times. Like, that's like a duh. Blair Ends, Win Without Pitching. Have you read that?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This changed the game for me. And I'm going to say it's kind of like systemizing. I'm going to throw it in air quotes. But
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it did was it speaks to a lot of what you talk about with productizing your services, but it still allowed me to be creative. So
Yep.
I read that book, God, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, super thin. I think that's right,
Hmm.
right? A really small book, but it talked
Yeah.
about selling.
It's expensive. It was like $80 or something like that.
I can't remember how much it was, but
Yeah.
it talked about selling strategy first and then implementation on the back end. So it was how I was able to productize while still being creative was when we shifted everything and started selling strategy first, it allowed me to still be creative without getting deep into the team building out all of the elements first. And it changed the game for us from a financial perspective and also from a systems perspective because
Yep.
it forced us to narrow in on one thing. So we were designing what I call like mini webinars, right? So they're
Hmm.
application systems for high ticket coaches. Well, we started positioning a paid strategy session first for 5 grand, 5,000
Hmm.
bucks. And what they got was two calls with me. One was a strategy call, and we actually ended up systemizing all of it. I was totally removed from it. But what we ended up doing was the strategy call first and then a delivery call, all of that for
Yep.
$5,000. And that was all of the creative work and people loved it. Like, it was an
Yeah.
easy yes. And then, like, if they wanted to move forward, we quoted them up front before they even paid the 5 grand. It's like, here's how much everything is. And if you want us to do the strategy, it's 5 grand. And the benefit of that is you are going to be able to take everything and implement it yourself. And that's what a lot of people want, by the way. Like, they
Yes.
want the option. So we sold that strategy first. It like quadrupled our conversion rates because originally we were just selling done for you services up front. And it's like, like, I don't want to commit to 30 grand. Like, I kind of just want your brain and then I'll go implement it yourself. And so when we broke it up into two offers, there was no like secret sale. It was like, I'll tell you how much it's going to be, but let's just do
Yep.
game plan first. And if you love it, awesome. We'll credit game plan towards any done for you services. Or if you want to go implement it yourself, like you'll be able to. I'll give you all the templates. You've got my creative brain power to develop your messaging. And so that crushed it for us. It scratched my
Yeah.
itch as a creative person while still being somewhat in the confinements of a like system and a process.
100%. Funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if it's that exact offer that you made, but I have a screenshot from you
Oh yeah.
following a conversation we had where you ended up selling like 15 or 25 grand of something like that.
Nice.
Because we talked about it and I was like, yeah, like you don't have to implement. I have to find it because I used it in a webinar. I was like, I never worked with Joel. Joel's a friend, but like we talked about how he could do it in his agency. And there's a screenshot of you saying, I just did this. And here's like, I already sold 5 or 6 of them. And
Yeah.
like, there's no fulfillment. Like, I was like, yes, because that's what happened to me. Like, when I had that guy on the phone and he used this example that every service provider steal it, use it. It wasn't mine. He gave it to me, but we teach it to our clients. He's like, oh, do you follow NASCAR? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, do you understand NASCAR? I was like, I get the concept. Do you think the guy that built the engine in that car is hopping over the wall to change the tire on race day? And I'm like, probably not. He's like, no, he's up in the booth drinking champagne. And like maybe after the race, he'll have to go optimize the engine to like perform better for the next race. He goes, you're engine builders, you're not the pit crew. And I'm like, yes. And so what we ended up finding were our best clients for that offer were the people that had pit crew already. And so every agency, there's like your ICP. And we always think, at least when they come into our world, they're like, oh, productize means they can't afford me. And so they want it, which is true. If they can't afford your done for you service, this productize version where they are the labor, they follow your strategy and blueprint is a really viable option because they don't have the money. So they value their time and their own effort and they'll follow the plan. They just don't know what the plan is. But on the flip side, there are people that are probably above your ICP that have some sort of staff and
Mm-hmm.
don't need you to do it, but they also need the strategy. This happened at Cabela's when I was there. We would bring agencies in. I'm like, we don't know how to do this, so we're hiring you to do it, but then we're going to pay you for an extra 12 months to teach us how you do XYZ to our development team so that we never need you again. And
Mm-hmm.
so that agency, they built our mobile app. They made whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. They could have just taken a walk, but then they got paid for another 12 months to teach and train our development team on just how they do the work. And
Mm-hmm.
that extended the LTV into our organization. And like they would have been fired, but they made another multiple 6 figures by just teaching us.
Yeah.
And it's like almost every agency, when they're like, oh, we're going to bring this in house, that's when you have a training offer. Well, okay, cool. They have people that can do the hands to keyboard, but they still probably need some strategic guidance. Why don't we have a consulting or training offer? Let's make sure they know how to run the system that we just installed, the engine that we just installed into your business so that it doesn't break.
Yeah.
And that'll extend the lifetime value. And now you kind of have a training consulting thing going on that's arguably will be more profitable, is easier for you because it's all stuff you already know and it requires less people.
It's pretty incredible. You were probably the one who pointed me. Either you gave me the advice or you told me to go read that book. So that's
Yeah.
why I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? You probably gave me this advice. I totally forgot about whatever that screenshot was. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's how far back we go. I mean, we've talked about this stuff ad nauseum and or life in general. But I'm sure this came up years ago. But yeah, it's so funny because I think as service providers and agencies, we do ourselves a disservice by thinking we're the only ones that can do it. It's like what people really want is they want your brain. That they can't do. But like they want your creative juices. And that can translate not in just you delivering the final product, but just in working through the process with them. And
Totally.
when I understood that, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like,
Yeah.
most of my 5K offers in the past, before I started selling $5,000 game plans, which took 2 hours to fulfill, like what more leveraged, way can you leveraged offer can you have than that? All my other 5K training offers or, 5K offers be like 8-week programs, 12-week programs. And it's like, shit, there's a large market out there. It would gladly pay me $5,000 to pick my brain for an hour. And then I put together a PDF slide deck of all my creative stuff, on paper. And they loved it. Like, we never had a
Yep.
single refund, never had a single complaint. And we didn't have to build anything. It's like, okay, just put my brain on paper, hand it to them, send me $5,000. And it was
Yep.
awesome.
This kind of bridges the gap into like where I see the biggest opportunity, because I think the examples that I've already given and even some of your examples break this down. So alt agency, like alternative agency, is kind of predicated on the belief of a few things. The first one being no one knows what it means to even be an agency anymore. Like that word almost means nothing. People describe it so differently. It's like how bastardized the word scale is. It's like people say agency, and I'm like, I actually have to ask clarifying questions because I'm not actually sure if you're an agency. The coach, the mentor, the advisor, the consultant, the creator, the SaaS product. The lines between those things are the blurriest that they've ever been. And that's an advantage for us. Because if I can use technology or use training or content, right, as a part of my service delivery to make my life easier, my business more profitable, my client happier, why would I not do that? So
Yep.
it's like the lines are blurred. How do we use that to our advantage? And so that's the first kind of like where this all came from. The second piece is that there are actually different types of buyers. We call them clients, members, and customers. I throw subscribers in there for a fourth sometimes, but like clients are the thing that we like. What do you need? I got you. I'm going to do it for you. It's the done for you, likely custom, most intimate, usually the most highest paying. But for clients, if you're thinking about a pyramid, they're at the top. So it's the smallest part of the pyramid because it is high in labor, but low in volume. Like you physically can't serve many of those people unless you just keep hiring more people. The next layer down is what I call members, mainly just to distinguish the difference between these types of people. You can still technically call them clients, but for this members, which is like, this is the in your client category, you probably have developed some sort of process or method or steps, a system, intellectual property. The members is, how do I transfer the outcome via that vehicle, that IP, that method, in a more leveraged fashion? And this is where I'd say if clients is done for you, in the middle is done with you. And done with you can take a lot of different shapes. Like most people think done with you means automatically coaching. But like as we've seen because of a purple book, well, there's some do stuff for you. There's some coaches that don't. And so it's like some coaching programs have elements of done for you. It's like, so can your service. Your whole service doesn't end to end need to be turned into training. You could do a little labor, give them a training. Based on the training, come back and do a little labor. You can combine these things to choreograph an outcome that is low in cost, but still high in profit. And that's like the members. So done with you. So that looks like training, your high ticket consulting, group coaching, things like that. I mean, even solo consulting or solo coaching, if you are taking someone through a repeatable framework, is still more leveraged, right? So that's the done with you. And then there's the customers who I look at that as DIY. It's like zero to little fulfillment at all, which means
Yep.
like you can't have a person in there doing stuff. This is your books. This is your digital courses, physical products, your SaaS stuff, right? And there are people inside of your market that look all the same. They check the boxes of your ICP, but some of them just want a different delivery vehicle. Like you said, I don't want to pay you to do it for me. I actually want to do it so I know how it works. I just need the system. And the trickle down is the power play, right? I'm guessing, and this is a clarifying question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Inside of your webinar agency, I'm guessing at some point for a client or for yourself and or both, you taught the power offer. You did the power offer for someone, either for yourself or for them, before it was codified into templates and tools.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, how do we take the thing that you're already doing and just have a different delivery vehicle? Joel was doing power offers done for you inside of his agency. It might have been a solo offer he did. It might have been a part of building out the webinar funnel. Hey, let's do a power offer first to gut check messaging before we build out this big webinar funnel. Well, now he did a whole group program, which he still has, that's taught. Then he has a $27 version of that where you get no access to him and no help. Same thing.
Yep.
There's 3 ways to get the exact same outcome at varying price points and various levels of support and service, all to get the same outcome. And it's like most service providers, if you unpack and unbundle some of the things that you're doing, like the power offer as a component, for us, it was the evergreen webinar or the John Lee Dumas weekly webinar formula. Like that was a product that we sold. People came to us and were like, I see John doing that. We want that. I was like, I can plug it in for 7,500. I can guide you, or I can build it for you on your behalf for 20. Which one do you want? And they're like, I'll take the 7,500, right? Same outcome, following the same steps. It's just, what's the vehicle in which I'm going to get you the outcome? And like you said, some people prefer different vehicles, right?
Yep.
Some people might want to go at it themselves and then be like, oh, it didn't work. Now I understand. I actually would rather just pay, the whatever to get it done for me. And so it doesn't always have to be a different offer either. It could be the same offer, just delivered in a different capacity, which is honestly the way that I recommend most people can get there if they can. It's some of the creative folks that have to unbundle a little bit differently, but like webinar funnel, anything like where you have that system can trickle down that pyramid very, very well in a done for you to a done with you to a DIY that makes you more accessible to a wider portion of your market.
Yeah, it's a big game changer. And I think the most challenging thing is choosing what to productize or choosing what to unbundle. When you're creative, you can do all sorts of things, right?
Yep.
And then it all comes down to also aligning with what people want the most that I can productize. It's a challenging nut to solve. It's a challenging
Yeah.
problem to solve, but for those who are kind of looking for, I don't even want to say next level because that sounds like scale bro. That sounds like, "Oh, I just want to grow." It's like, no, it's like next level means just being smart about your time and being able to make good money without needing to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning finishing client deliverables.
Well,
It's
and
a,
that's the beauty. It can be as big or small as you want, right?
yeah,
Like, and your combination of like, I ever only want to have, 10 to 12 people that I'd put in that client category active at one time. And that's like now my one-on-one consulting. I don't
yep.
want more than 10 at that. Then I want, people buy that stuff. And so it might be 10 clients, 100 members, and 1,000 customers. And like, based on your economics, I mean, that could easily be a multi-million-dollar business just with having one offer for each of those 3 ways and just 10, 100, 1,000 of at each level, and you have it. There are examples out there that we've all seen, that many of us have seen probably, that align like this. I mean, Design Pickle, from like how far can you take a simple productized service, unlimited design. I mean, they're like a $30 million plus a year business, and they have like almost 1,000 employees. That's crazy. Many people listening to this probably have heard of Alex Hormozy, right? Like, Gym Launch was the exact same path that both of us just went on. He was going around, flying around the country doing gym launches. And he's like, this sucks, flying around the country doing this one-on-one custom for everybody. Plus he got screwed a couple times, whatever. Then he's like, let me just codify it. And then he started showing people how to do it. It turned basically into group coaching, 16-week program into a 3-year program, like part done for you, part coaching, part video training. That had an exit. I have a buddy, Jay, who's in Australia, who Facebook ads agency created a 12-month agency for e-com companies, how to do ads where you don't need the agency. So like, here's how to run ads internal for your e-commerce company. And a 12-month program, they just got semi-acquired for almost 40 million. He has a $2,000 coaching program for the people that can't afford the main thing. There's a $25K a year, 12-month thing for the mid-tier. And then he has his done for you agency that's like $6,000 or $8,000 a month. And they cap how many people. The agency does, 2 to 3 mil. The coaching collectively does like 25 mil a year. It's
Wow.
like, it can go as, he has a ton of coaches and a ton of people. So at some point, some of these things to get that big still require people and the management that would have come if you built an agency anyway. It's just
Yeah.
a different way. But like, if you want to be a scale bro, like there are examples of this model. Strategic coach, codification of templates, unbundling. They deliver them in workshops, they deliver it in person, they deliver it virtually. They have a big program. They have a couple different tiers. Like that's a 20 plus $30 million a year business that's been around for decades. It's like
Yep.
there are examples of this all over the place that are very big. And then you have the smaller examples like a Justin Welsh, who he still does some one-on-one consulting, but he licenses out advertising on his newsletter, which I'd argue is that customer level. He has his products, which has zero fulfillment. He has his little membership where they get like a coaching call a week. That's his membership. He does like 4 or 5 million a year with one assistant. And so it's like, when you look at it through well, how many clients do I want? How many members do I want? How many customers do I want? What skew, what slice of how do I want to, proportion those out to hit my goals? Everyone can have something that's unique to them. And it could be big with a big team or lean and also big.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it, because it's really flexible to like what most people want anyway.
Yeah, this is a discussion that we could have for literally hours, but we're running out of time.
Definitely.
Where can people reach out to you, Greg? I know you're active on YouTube. Drop some links. Where's your
Yeah.
website?
If
Yeah.
you search Greg Hickman on YouTube or go to gregsvideos.com, it'll redirect you to my YouTube channel. There's tons of content on this if that'd be helpful. If you have any questions, you can always email me at greg@altagency.com. And those places will get you to the next right place once you vibe with our stuff.
Dude, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, jamming with you. And you also reminded me that you are probably the one who shared with me how to codify my brain and sell those 5K game plans. So there we go.
There we go. Yeah. I'm going to go find that screenshot. It's in one of my VSLs from like 2018. One of the many, the screen grabs on, like, look at these people. Like,
Yep.
maybe you'll recognize them.
Love it. Dude, it's great to connect. Great to have you on the show. And if you're listening right now, go reach out to Greg. Let him know you heard him on Experts Unleashed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.